Think of one game you were excited for. I want you to pause this video for just 1 second and think of one game you were excited for. Not a game that was delayed, one that launched and disappointed you so badly you never went back even after the patches. Don't say it out loud, just think about it. That feeling right there, that's why being late is temporary and being bad is permanent. I'm Vadd, and I want to tell you that nobody stays mad about a delay, but players will never forget how a game made them feel on day one. Listen, late will end, but bad will last. A delay is going to cost time, but a bad game is going to cost trust forever. And you might say to me, Vadd, this sounds like common sense. Yes, I completely agree with you. Delays will fade, but quality will not. Late is going to be forgiven, but broken is remembered. My question is, why does the industry keep doing the opposite? It sounds like common sense. Why isn't it common practice? I think there's a mindset in the games industry of, we'll fix it later. And I don't think it's a very honest slogan. I think actually it's more like a lie. I think these fixes, the we'll fix it later, never solves anything because those fixes cannot undo that first impression. If anything, as soon as I see live service, to me it reads like a shield for incomplete design. I think we see this we'll fix it later mindset with all the day one patches that are normalized because unfinished games are launched. I got it. You can patch the bugs, but you cannot patch player memory. You cannot patch that first impression. You cannot patch that experience. You cannot patch that trust that you are delivering or failing to deliver on. The we'll fix it later mindset is the same thought process that under-delivers and over-promises. Because I think what gets forgotten here is that launch week is a point of no return. Again, you say that seems obvious. Yes, because it is. The facts are, late is going to be forgiven, but broken is going to be remembered. You only get one launch week, and that is your launch week forever. The reviews, the scores, the critics, they lock in that review at launch week. They lock in those scores at launch week. The critics are there at launch. That is a point of no return. It doesn't matter if we'll fix it later. The scores are in. I think the social media presences only amplify the entire launch week trajectory. I think if it was going to be a bad game, they make sure it's a known bad game sooner. I think if it's going to be a good game, they make sure it's a known good game sooner. Everyone wants to have fun, play a good game, and share it with their friend. And I think sometimes people are just as motivated to say, look, that's a bad game, and tell all their friends. You only get one launch week, and that week lasts forever. You get 1 week at launch. That's it. And if you're going to have a narrative defining moment and deliver something broken instead of late, you've made the wrong choice. And we're seeing that time and time again because you can't fix it later. Launch week is a point of no return, and there's an emotional cost here. Most players do not quit bad games because they're broken. They quit because they feel betrayed. Players feel misled. It's not about impatience. It's about the experience they had and how it made them feel. Because being late is temporary, but being bad is permanent. Sure, you can patch the badness later. Sure, it might not be fixed at launch week, but it's too late because that emotional cost to players has already landed. You run the risk that you're going to experience why many players will never reinstall your game. I've heard the counter argument that players are impatient. That's not true. That's not true. The truth is, players don't actually hate delays. They hate being lied to, as players will forgive silence more than disappointment. The players will wait years for a great game, but that sting of the delay, it's going to fade. But that burn of a bad game, it's going to last. If you're watching my video right now, you might be saying to yourself, Vadd, you're telling us something we all know and agree with. And then I'd sit here and go, so I guess the question is, why does rushing happen anyways? And I think there's actually a couple of reasons that maybe are understandable, even if they're maybe still inexcusable. I think it's good for games to be able to be pre-ordered and to have a hype cycle. Game developers benefit from pre-orders. They benefit from hype cycles. Those are good things for the product they're trying to sell. I think it is to the game developers detriment if they can no longer deliver at that launch. Yes, rushing happens to land on pre-order dates and to carry a wave into a hype cycle. There's a reason when a game is coming out, you start seeing more marketing for it. And there's a reason sometimes you don't. I think those marketing commitments are a second layer here to why rush games continue to happen. Because you have a planned out campaign. These 6 months, we're going to post this much budget in this many places to get this much hype to try and drive this many pre-orders. It's strategic, it's tactical, it's planned, but it's still a problem because you run the risk that was the wrong launch window, and now you're holding everyone's money in these pre-orders. They put their trust in you. You've been hyping up everything that's coming. They get their emotions, excitement in you. You've made these marketing commitments about what your game's going to deliver. And then you go, well, we'll send it and patch it because, we can always do a day one patch and we'll fix it later, but it's too late. I think another reason we see rushing continue to happen are fiscal quarters and monetization calendars. Essentially, most businesses are in business to make money. That's kind of their thing. There's nothing bad about that. It's not evil. It's a simple math equation. It cost me 5 to make this. I sell it for 6. I have profit. I get to make another. They have fiscal quarters and monetization calendars and metrics that as a business they need to hit to stay in business, to pay their employees. So those employees have money to go home to their families and keep a roof over their head and eat food they like and all the other things that you could do with money. Money is a tool, and we see games get rushed to hit these fiscal quarters, to hit these monetization calendars, and they shouldn't be. The facts are, rushing a game rarely ever helps players. It just helps the spreadsheets to hit those numbers on target. You are buying short-term games and burning long-time trust. I think another layer to why rushing continues to happen is because I think there's a cost to being average in this gaming industry. I think just okay might not be good enough, because being almost good is probably worse than being late, as mediocre games will vanish and great games will survive. Nobody remembers an almost good game. So I think sometimes you'll see games have a release window coming up and then another game gets announced and they'll move their release window. They don't want to get swept up in this other marketing commitment cycle, this other hype cycle, this other pre-order chain, because their game might actually be just okay and be pretty good, but that might not be good enough. You might be comparing yourself to another title and you might be worried that comparatively you're mediocre. And I think this cost of being just okay, this high barrier to succeed, but being almost good is going to be worse than being late. Sometimes pushes games out that shouldn't be pushed out. Sometimes pulls games out that shouldn't be pulled out. If there's nothing you remember from this video, I want to leave you with this line. Time rewards quality. It never rewards shortcuts. Time rewards quality. It never rewards shortcuts. I firmly believe there's a long-term payoff to consistently delivering a quality experience. I think there is, even in this internet age, there is still a real power in word of mouth. Because the facts are, late is just a moment in time, but bad is a permanent reputation. Earlier I asked you to think of a game that disappointed you in the launch. Go ahead and write it in the comments. I don't want to dogpile here, I just want to prove something. We remember how games make us feel. And a good game is going to age well. Quality titles are going to have that long sales tail. They're going to have mods. They're going to get re-evaluation years later. They're going to have that strong word of mouth gathering. But the bad ones here, they're cautionary tales. Because you and I both remember that feeling of frustration, the crashes, the disappointment that creates that lasting emotional damage. Even a massive update can't fully erase that memory, because first impressions define reputations. Launch week defines the narrative. The reviews, the ratings, the scores, the social sentiment that locks in early, these are not getting reversed. A rush game ships with broken systems, unstable performance, and unfinished mechanics. Even if patched later, these first impressions will stick with players who may never come back. And I've heard about the post-launch damage control. It's far more expensive to deal with refunds, PR fixes, reworks, than simply taking more development time up front. Rush content limits creative ambitions. Those cut features, those unfinished ideas, and those shallow systems you run into all reduce a game's forever ceiling. Yes, you can always add content later, but that core vision is often locked in. There's a psychological cost to developers here, the real humans that work on these games. The devs know when a game isn't ready, and I think these rushed games that ship too early instead of being practically delayed, I think it damages morale. To see something you've worked on for so long ship broken and then not be received well after you've been working crunch hours of overtime, extra time trying to get it done. The only outcome of that is burnout. Even worse, the outside narrative is without fail something to the kin of lazy devs, and that might not be true at all. Might actually be the opposite. The devs might have actually been working very, very hard, fully knew the game wasn't ready, had to watch their baby ship out unfinished and broken, and it might have broke their heart. I think we're losing real people with real talent who are actually invested in doing the best work, their best creative work, their career, and they're going to walk away from this industry. You know who actually benefits from rushing a game? I'll tell you, there's one group of people who benefits in the short term. Investors, because the delay will hurt an investor. That short-term financial pressure, that's who actually benefits from a game being rushed, because they're the only one that's hurt by it being delayed. Because it's kind of an inverted window here. A rushed game will hurt a player, but the delay will hurt the investor. And when you think like that, you can immediately see why some companies are delaying games and some aren't. Because one of them is willing to hurt their players, and one of them is willing to hurt their investors. It is consumers who are paying the price for these rush games, not the investors, not the executives, not the C-suite players. A rushed game is rarely, probably never, but rarely for the players. Because rush games hurt players, but delays hurt investors. And I think that's a backwards mindset, to be willing to hurt the players. Because really, you're essentially saying, I'm interested in short-term financial gains instead of long-term brand longevity. Because that's what you're trading. You're trading your long-term brand damage for short-term financial pressure. And I think there's two more compounding factors you're not going to believe. Modern monetization makes rushed games worse, because there's nothing worse than having a rushed game that disappoints you, opening it up and seeing the one menu that works, the one pop-up that's clear to read, easy to access, unskippable, is some kind of a seasonal content calendar, battle pass, fiscal quarter pleasing, shareholder timeline happiness, whatever slop. Because that's not the game you bought. It's not the game you downloaded to play. It's not the game you tried to engage with. No. But somehow that's always a system that's finished, functioning, error-free, bug-free. Some reason it's a giant pop-up right at the start. And all that does is breed more ill will. I think studios need to stop saying soon. I think they need to have more transparency in their delays. And I think they need to be more clear in their communication to avoid overhyping things. I also think they need to be more honest in scope reduction. Here's why. If your favorite game developer says, hey, I know you liked game 1 and game 2, I'm working on game 3. Game 3 is going to be better than the other two. I'm not trying to oversell it, but I'm really impressed. I promise you it'll be come out on day number 10. It's not coming out on day number 10. It's coming out on day 100. I know that's sad, but I'm not going to give you better than my best. I'm not going to give you worse than my worst. I'm going to give you exactly what I promised. This game is so much better than game 1 and game 2. It does everything you want in game 3, but only if we wait another 90 days. A little more transparency in the delays would be beneficial, because all of a sudden you humanize it. You clearly communicate, hey, this isn't the best thing in the world. It's not the worst thing in the world. I'm building on what I built last time. It's clear communication, not overhyping these. I also think an honest scope reduction. Your game cannot be everything to everyone. Creative people are going to have wonderful ideas of things they want to put into the game. But at some point you have to say, this belongs, this doesn't. This is what we can realistically work on in the time frame we have. Because remember, a delay might disappoint you today, but a bad game will disappoint you forever.